Hi, this is Elizabeth, and I'm back again once more with the book review. And this is The City of Dark Magic, as written by Magnus Flyte. And if you take a good close look at the cover of the book, you'll notice this alchemy symbol blatantly in your face. And of course, Ludwig van Beethoven. A little bit of lasciviousness there. It plays a huge part in the plot. And plot, sorry I had to do that. But if you open the cover, you see that there is a map of Prague, which is tantamount. This is paramount to the plot and the central backdrop of the plot in and of itself, because we have our main character Sarah, who is drawn into this mystery. And actually, let me go ahead and read a little bit of an excerpt from the book in of itself. It's from the prologue. The Save Venice fundraiser began as these things do, with Bellinis, the tiny toast points topped with squid pate, with swaying musicians playing the greatest hits of Italian opera beneath a fresco by Tiepolo. Sequined women and tuxedo-clad men stepped out of teak vaporetti into the private dock at Cavanazzetto, where, it was hoped, strong drink and the thought of beautiful palazzi sinking into the sands would lift wallets as easily as a child pickpocket at the Piazza San Marco. The organizers were salivating, greeting a German fashion designer, an American hedge fund owner, and a dour British playwright. Models had been hired to improve the beauty quotient, since billionaires are not especially attractive up close. But just after midnight, something had gone terribly wrong. What was then, as one of the Carabinieri put it, the Casa de Corpi, or human waterfall, began. It was a minor member of the Saudi royal family who went first, startling everyone around him by emitting a series of hoarse screams and then crashing through a glass window and plummeting out of sight. A billionaire American industrialist, who onlookers' first thought was rushing into to save the Saudi, soon joined him. They were the first two. A honeymooning couple from Youngstown, Ohio, being pulled up the Grand Canal, were startled to see a series of bodies falling from the windows of the glittering palazzo. Inside, panic was raging, and it was generally felt that very few evening distinguished themselves by bravery. By that time it was over. 7 people in formal wear and 1 waiter were floating face down in the Grand Canal, dead. So I'm going to write another. Here's another excerpt. I'm just going to read real fast. He shrugged. It must have been important to him if he intended to take it with him to the great beyond. Why are you so sure, asked Sarah, that it was a suicide? I knew him. It doesn't seem like something he'd do. You knew him, but you didn't know Prague, said the little man. Okay, so why break into my apartment and go through my stuff? She asked in her best South Boston tough girl voice. Of course, she wasn't sure it had been him, but she didn't like the feeling that the little man was the sort of messing with her. Best to go on offense. Why'd you draw that symbol on my ceiling? What's that about? I'm flattered, said the little man, as the car emerged from the tunnel and a fairy tale city appeared in front of Sarah, that you could think I could reach your ceiling. Sarah couldn't help it. She burst out laughing. The little man joined her. Sarah settled back in her seat and took in the pastel buildings, pointed terracotta roofs, narrow cobbled streets. According to the brief historical notes in her ridiculous guidebook, this was the city where people had labored to turn lead into gold, where Rabbi Lo had turned a handful of dirt into a golem, where anything was possible. Prague, Praha. The name actually meant threshold. Polina has said the city was a portal between the life of the good and the other. A city of dark magic, Alessandro had called it. I really enjoyed this book. It's such a good read. It just draws you in immediately, and you're surrounded by this air of ominous air and just the whole intrigue of it, the cloak and dagger mystique, which I really enjoyed. And there's a second book in this series, which I definitely need to read because it ended on the worst possible of cliffhangers. So I'm desperate to know how this all comes to a close. But that's all I'm going to say about the City of Dark Magic. But in the near future, my producer and I are hopeful that we're able to take some trips along Route 66, the great. I'm going to turn it over to my producer right now, talking about the route.
And I'm here once again. This is John. I sit in the background, push buttons to make Elizabeth look good. Yeah, we're going to try and take some trips this summer. Normally, I won't be part of the webcasts unless we're like teasing something that's coming up. We took a trip out to Route 66 or on Route 66 in Missouri.
It was Sullivan.
And we visited a friend when he was having an open house for relighting the neon on an old hotel, the Shamrock Hotel. And we really enjoyed ourselves. Met a lot of nice people.
It was a lot of fun.
And we've been saying for the last year that, we're going to go back out and visit Route 66 again and see some cool stuff. So recently, Rich, our friend, he goes by Roaming Rich or Roman Rich on Facebook and YouTube and other social media. And he's kind of a historian for Route 66, historian, promoter, restorer. He travels out to different events and different places that are like being restored or need to be talked about. So he's got a very engaging Facebook and engaging channel. And he's doing a webcast every Sunday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And we've been watching the last 3 or 4 of those, and they are entertaining. And on the last one, a book got mentioned, and we thought we would buy it. We went out to Amazon, and they had only the 4th edition. So I was able to go out to the National Historic Route 66 Federation website and got the book. And then we've got another book I couldn't resist.
The Adventure Handbook.
Yeah, that's the Adventure Handbook by Drew Knowles. And I've had a number of people tell me this is really good. I've had a lot of people tell me this is an excellent reference to take with you if you're
that reference is fantastic.
Traveling on Route 66. This is the Easy 66 Guide for Travelers, sometimes called the Route 66 Bible. And it's got a lot of good material in here. This is a great book to just take with you when you're out on your trip as reading material. And when you get near an area, this has got some handy maps and information in it. So I thought I would mention those. So we'd like to hear your comments on a Route 66 trip. We'd be going through probably the southern half of Illinois and over across most of Missouri, just depending on how many days we can get free. And if you've got any suggestions on things to see over there or what you'd like to see us video on camera, we're going to take a few cameras along. We'll shoot some photos and videos of the things we encounter and find on the way. And we'll bring that to you during one of these webcasts. So that's what we're looking forward to. We've got new software that we're using. We used for the last webcast and this one. It's Ecamm Live. And I've had so many people tell me that's probably the best broadcasting software you can get for something that actually runs on the computer as opposed to something that's out, on the web and you connect to it through a browser. Here I can do all the production on the computer. I can bring in guests. live during a webcast. So we'll be doing some interviews in the future. We're also set up to where I can take phone calls as well. This is something I used to use with webcasts about 7 or 8 years ago, back when I did more of these. And it's called Digital Hybrid. And you can see it in the bottom camera there. And it's for putting phone calls on the air. So that's what I'm looking forward to using. So we can take telephone calls. Now, there's software you can get that lets you do telephone calls during a webcast where the call's actually coming through your computer. But those are generally third-party services you've got to pay for. And with the digital hybrid, I don't have to do that. This is a device that's used in many radio stations for putting callers on the air. It's reliable, it's flexible, and I already bought it and paid for it years ago. So I didn't have to run out and buy anything. And it looks like it's worked pretty well in setting it up with the software that we're using. So we'll take phone calls and we'll announce a telephone number of call-ins in the future. Next webcast, maybe we'll just be playing around with that a little bit and hearing your input on what you'd like to see on the webcasts. Elizabeth will continue to do her book reviews, singing,
movie reviews,
this and that. You might also notice we changed the name of the channel because her old name for the channel, I could not find it.
Are you going to find this shrubbery?
I could not find it on YouTube. So anyway, we changed it to Elizabeth Burnt, This and That. And until we come up with a name maybe we like better, that's the name we're using. So hopefully you can search and find her on YouTube, Elizabeth Burnt, BERNDT, This and That. And we'll see how that goes. Let's see if we've got any other things to talk about while I'm here. But anyway, we want to bring you some interesting content and give you a lot of input in what we discuss on the webcasts. And we do plan to have guests. Sometimes I'm friends with other YouTubers that have some pretty sizable channels, like 750,000. And, we've been in touch for quite a while. A couple other YouTubers that are actual, I guess you call them professional hobos. One's got a big channel, one's got a smaller channel. They have very different types of content, but they're professional hobos. And both very interesting people with a lot of good stories to tell. So that will probably be a webcast at some point in the future. I'm a storm chaser, actually more of a storm spotter for the Weather Service. We're spotters for the Weather Service now. My days of driving in chaser mode are almost over. I don't know. You've probably seen the different TV shows centered around storm chasers. It would be a white knuckle ride, to say the least. So I don't participate in that manner. But we may interview, I know some of the prominent storm chasers. We may do a webcast or two on storm chasing. So we really want to hear your input on that. So in addition to liking and subscribing and clicking the little bell,
leave a comment below.
Leave a comment below and give Elizabeth some insight. It's going to be pretty much her choice on what to do. And she's going to base that a lot on your insight. And then I'm ready to go with the flow with whatever she thinks works for her channel. Let's see. That's about all I've got right now. Can you think of any other things you want to tell the audience? Book reviews?
Well,
do you want them to suggest some books?
I'm open to book reviews.
Knowing what you've read.
Yeah.
So we may have to be ordering some books off of Amazon here to keep you, stocked up with content. But anyway, we appreciate you watching. My name's John. And of course, you know Elizabeth. And we look forward to seeing you the next time when we do one of these Elizabeth Burnt, This and That webcasts.
Catch you later. Live long, prosper. Ciao, to do.
And in the future, we will play more with the fancy buttons on the console. This is a Rodecaster Pro 2. I like to let people know what equipment we're using because you'll get people to tune in and see something they like about your channel as far as production value, and they'll ask you, what equipment are you using? And I found out about some of this equipment through other webcasters where I've asked them those questions, and they've been very responsive in giving me an answer, a few tips. So I'd like to be in a position to do the same. So if you see something you like that we do on the channel,
ask questions
either through camera or audio production equipment, we don't have any problem with that. So I'm going to hit the outro button here. And we will go away to see you next time. Probably, I don't know, maybe a webcast this weekend if we can think of something to do a webcast on. Say goodbye, Elizabeth.
Goodbye, Elizabeth.